Okay, so in this video I'm going to be walking through how to do well on section B, which is the writing section of the GCSE English language paper. So for this section I've got 45 minutes to plan, write and proofread my answer. The examiner needs me to show that I can produce the type of text that the question asks for and aim it at the specified audience. I also need to show off my vocabulary and my ability to use a range of sentence types and openings, and you can see here I've broken down the timings at 45 minutes to plan, write and proofread. It works out as 5 minutes planning, 35 minutes writing and 5 minutes proofreading. Now 8 out of the 24 marks are awarded for good spelling, punctuation and grammar, so I need to be as accurate as possible. It would be really silly of me to lose those marks because I was rushing or because I didn't proofread my work at the end. So there are some places you can go to get some help. So BBC Scotland's website has got some really good things to help you with your spelling, punctuation and grammar. That's the web address there, which you can look up. Also, just the general BBC Bite-Size site. There's a skills-wise site too. If you know that you find things difficult in terms of your spelling, punctuation or grammar, now is the time to think about it. Not the night before the exam when really it's too late for you to be thinking about making those big improvements. Your teachers can help you, just need to ask them. So, there are 2 questions printed on the paper. There are 2 questions I can choose from. I have to answer one of them. I do not answer both because that would waste my time and I wouldn't get any more than 24 marks in total. So the first question on this particular paper is school related. I know quite a lot about the issue, but I don't think it gives me an opportunity to show sophistication or to present compelling and fully developed ideas. So I've opted for question 10. Okay, I'm going to work out the form, audience and purpose for this task. The reason why I've chosen 10 is because I think it gives me a lot more scope. I can write about literally anything in the entire world. Whereas question 9 asked me to write something relatively boring to my principal or head teacher. So the question tells me I'm writing a contribution for a website, so I will need to refer to the internet, remember to use article conventions and use formal vocabulary with a slightly conversational tone to appeal to the general public. If the audience isn't clear, I would write for a formal audience, as the examiner is a formal person. As the topic is what I feel strongly about, I'll be both informing and arguing my point of view. So now I know what I'm doing, I'm going to be able to plan my answer. I can write about absolutely any topic here and can make my topic up if I don't feel strongly about anything. But having said that, it is sometimes easier if it's a topic that I already have an opinion about. I might have to think about what I've been learning in other subjects if I get stuck. So I'm going to write about feeling strongly about animals being killed to be eaten. When I plan my answer, I need to ensure that the reasons I'm going to give are interesting and supported using a range of language techniques. Things like anecdotal evidence, facts, opinions, rhetorical questions, emotive language maybe, similes, metaphors, triplets. So really any of the language techniques that you've been learning in your lessons. I'm going to spend no more than 5 minutes thinking about and planning my web article. And I recommend that you do that too, so I pause it here and time yourself having 5 minutes to plan. Okay, so I know that in my opening paragraph, I need to show off what I can do with my writing. It's the first thing that the examiner will read. But to try to be powerful and interesting with my opening, I might start with an anecdote or rhetorical question, as I know that I need to remember to use a range of punctuation. I could even use a semicolon or colon in my opening sentence to really show the examiner that I know what I'm doing and that I deserve those high marks. So this is what I'm going to write. What I've got here are a range of sentence types, techniques and punctuation. So you can see with my opening, started with some really simple short sentences to open. The topic at the moment is ambiguous and the persona of he is also ambiguous. If I hadn't told you it was about eating meat, then you wouldn't necessarily know from reading this section. You can see that I've used a semicolon there just to prove that I can do it. I've got a complex sentence here, which I've opened with the subordinate clause, as his days drew to a close. I've got an extended noun phrase, large open hall. I've opened this sentence here with an ing verb, freezing in terror. It's also pretty emotive. A colon there to introduce additional information. And I've got direct address, and that's also an example of a rhetorical question. So what I've tried to do is really show off. Like I said, now this is the first thing that the examiner will read of mine. And what I want that person to think is, yes, this candidate knows exactly what they're doing. They know how to use language. They know how to answer this question. Now, my next logical point in the piece of writing which I have chosen to write would be perhaps to write about corporations who profit from meat selling. So in my plan, I thought I might focus on McDonald's. Now, I can make up statistics as long as they sound believable. I'm not going to say something like 21.7%, 68.1% of something, as that is ridiculous. I'm going to stick to whole numbers in my statistics. I'll also quote an expert. If I can't think of one, I'll use the last name of the person sitting in front of me in the exam. For instance, Dr. Lake, a nutritional researcher and expert in animal rights from Oxford University, has found. I also need to vary my paragraph length so that the examiner doesn't get bored. I've used a rhetorical question as a one-sentence paragraph in my example. I think I'd like to use this kind of structure after each of my points so that my structure is interesting and original. So, this is how we go about writing an A-grade conclusion or ending. So my top tips are keep thinking about that flap, so the form, language, audience and purpose. You've got to be thinking about it right through to the end. If you forget and you start to drift on it, then that's your A star gone. You also want to be using words from the task and linking it directly to what you were asked to do. So, tips then, in a conclusion, you can summarise your main points. For instance, you could say, ultimately, what it boils down to is. You could present the reader with a choice. For instance, I know as human beings you have to choose between. You might want to challenge the audience. For instance, the sentence here, you as animals yourselves have to ask yourselves, can we afford to treat our fellow creatures in this way? There might be other important things that you want to include here. It's an article and you're writing about something you feel strongly about. So how should you end? I don't recommend finishing on a rhetorical question. I think that if you're ending on a rhetorical question, you should probably answer it, as that makes it more powerful. You should also never end on an ellipsis, because if you end on an ellipsis, yes, it is a valid piece of punctuation. However, it also suggests that you didn't know how to end your article, so you're ending on a dot, dot, dot. If you read magazine articles, I recommend that you check how they end. Okay, so you have a look online, look at online articles, read people's blogs, have a look in magazines and newspapers. How do they normally end? And that's something that you can replicate in your exam answer. So what am I being assessed for? So the examiner isn't looking for you to write something perfect. What they want is something which is really good for somebody who is 15 or 16 years old. They're not expecting you to be able to write as a professional journalist. Just going to make sure it's really focused all the way through, particularly in terms of form, language, audience and purpose. I've got to pay really close attention to sentence structure, spelling and punctuation. There are lots of marks for that. I've also got to make sure that the beginning, middle and end makes sense and that it hangs together as a clear, structured piece. I've got to write in paragraphs, or the best that I'm going to get in that section is probably a D grade mark. And I also need to use connectives and discourse markers to link my ideas together and again to just create a bit more cohesion. So here we're thinking about what do we need to do? Well, we've got to use a range of sentence types and openers. We've got to show off with vocabulary, have an imaginative opening paragraph, accurate spelling, punctuation and grammar, use statistics sparingly, where we closely match the form, audience and purpose. We need to include a wide range of language techniques. We've got to read the task carefully. The Asked me to write an article, I need to write an article, not a letter. Asked me to write a speech, I don't start it with dear sir or madam. You'd be surprised how many people do those things. Make sure that you read the task. I've got to proofread it before I put my pen down. I should not be sat 15 minutes from the end in the exam doing nothing. I've got to use every minute that is available to me. If I want to get an A or an A star, I've got to work for it through the whole time. I need to have a considered conclusion. I'm going to go through that in a second. And I also need to plan before I write. As well as planning, I've also got to make sure that I keep an eye on the time. I've got 45 minutes for this whole section. I cannot let time run away from me. So in terms of my conclusion needs to be imaginative and compelling. It's the last thing that the examiner is going to read, and I want them to put their pen or their mouse to one side and say, that was brilliant. I don't want to write too much. I'm going to end up repeating myself. And if I'm short of time, I know that I still need to do 1 or 2 sentences where I conclude, or my article won't feel finished and I'm going to lose marks. I also know there is no point in writing some bullet points of things that I would have said if I'd had more time. This just annoys the examiner and it wastes my own time in which I could have been writing my conclusion. So basically, it's going to be over to you. So what I would do, sat at home, obviously watching this video in your spare time, is to have a go at writing your own answer to this task. So use the tips and the information on previous sections of this video and have a go. So a website called Your Voice is asking for contributions with the title, What I Feel Strongly About. Write your contribution on a topic of your own choice. So you would be spending 30 minutes planning, writing and proofreading your answer. So if you want to do that now, I would pause and have a go. Okay, so if you've still got time left at the end of the exam, you can go back to the beginning of the paper and read through your answers. First of all, the one that needs finishing is question 5B, because that one was worth 24 marks. So you finish that one off first, and then you can go back to question 5A if necessary at the very end. So I hope what you've been able to see here is the really kind of easy tips and ways to get yourself to that A or A star level mark. It is relatively straightforward, but an A or an A star isn't just given to anybody. It has to be really, really worked for. So I wish you success, like this baby, which you can see here. He's thinking about the success that he's going to have and the success that you're going to have. If you have any questions about how to get an A or an A star in your English language GCSE, if you check with your teacher, or you're always welcome to come and see me. I'm in B4 and I'm always happy to help you out. I hope this has been useful to you. Feel free to have a go at any writing questions, any reading questions. Have a look through your copy of Mice and Men, find some extracts, try and pick out the language techniques and say about the effect on the reader. Any old article, you've got to read lots, have a look on the BBC website, the Guardian website, pick up some magazines and even, any old magazine, travel writing, anything at all will help you between now and the exam. Thank you for having a watch and giving it a bit of a go, and good luck.